obviously sent you guys videos and things, and you can see that on the first day.
And everything's labeled too, so they can see where it was.
And everything felt good. Aaron started to struggle at some point. Was it in the first?
It was just after the second aid station, which would have been mile 28.7. 28.7. So we expected to hit that right around dark, which we did. It was very, very busy. A lot of people hitting that at the same time. So we came through there, got some stuff to eat, filled up on some fluids and whatnot. And then not long after that point, around mile 30, I started to feel a bit nauseous, had some stomach issues, and had diarrhea very immediately after that aid station, which wasn't a good sign. And then had it again shortly thereafter. And then it wasn't long after that I started throwing up.
And I have a video of it, but I didn't upload it to the album
because there were too many people.
I don't think anyone wants to see that.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that.
Send a thumbs up for more.
I was told, though, that it was audible from several miles away. A guy approached me at an aid station later on and said, "Were you the one that threw up back at mile 35 or so?" I went, "Yeah." He goes, "Dude, I was at mile like 31. I could hear you." So I was proud of that at least. But once that cleared the system,
it took what, 3-4 hours maybe?
Yeah, a couple hours, and I was actually feeling a lot better. And for the rest of the race, didn't have any problems since then. So I'm not sure what caused that, but thankfully it wasn't a problem after that. And we continued moving through that first night where it got very, very cold.
Yeah. And that was probably one of the hardest things about this race was dealing with the temperature swings, because it was very, very exposed in the daytime. Some days there were clouds, but many days there weren't any clouds, and it was just the sun hitting you straight on, no shade. There weren't really any trees out there. It's all like cacti and brush. Nothing, very few things you can kind of get under for cover. And so it's super exposed in the daytime. But then at night, you were always trying to figure out, do we need a down jacket, or do we need long sleeves or short sleeves? Like, what on earth is going to happen? Because the temperatures fluctuate so violently at night. You could be on a ridge and it be normal weather where you're perfectly happy wearing a short sleeve shirt, and then you're going down the ridge and you hit a certain layer of another pocket of air that's freezing cold, and immediately you start shivering, and it's a bad problem. So it was really odd having to deal with the temperature swings in the race, and that was a challenge.
The temperature swings were violent.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons we don't see them where Mark and I live is because of clouds that trap the heat at night and disperse it more slowly, and then tree canopy, which they obviously don't have either of those, and humidity. And all three of those things are lacking out there, which allows heat to transfer through the atmosphere so much more quickly and makes those swings in temperature so much more violent. Yeah. And that made it very, very difficult to dress for.
Yeah. So the next morning we kept, ran through the night, sun came up, and that next day, basically the objective was just to get to mile 75. Because mile 75 was the first time that we were actually going to be able to meet up with our crew, David and Andrea, so that we were really looking forward to that. And we got there, what time did we get there?
It says 11:30 in the morning.
Okay, so ran through the rest of the morning, and right about 24 hours into the race, a little short of it, I guess 22 hours into the race, we got to the mile 75 mark where David and Andrea were, and that was where we had kind of decided it would be our first sleep station where we're going to sleep, because of the late start. It was kind of weird to sleep that first night, because it's like we just started the race, 6 hours ago, and now it's dark. We're not going to go to sleep.
Oh, and it felt nicer.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, later on, nicer
Right.
at night than it did in the morning, in the day.
Right. So we got there again at like 11 o'clock in the morning, but we'd already run 75 miles. And so we got there, hugged Andrea and said hi and all that. And they had set up in the back of the car. And you saw pictures, but a setup for a sleep station, essentially, two air mattresses and everything. So Aaron and I got in the back of those, ate some food. What we did when we got to an aid station with David and Andrea was ask for real food, because on the trail you're not eating real food much. You're eating like Cliff Bars or gels or things like that. So we'd order like a real piece of food, whatever the aid station had, whether it was a plate of pasta and spaghetti or meatballs
That's the one that really, they got almost at every aid station where we were at. It was either a hamburger or pasta noodles with tomato sauce and meatballs.
Right, like a hamburger or whatever. And we'd eat something like that and then go to bed so that our body had some actual food to digest and work with. And then when we'd wake up, we'd eat either another burger or another plate of pasta or whatever before we head out for the next leg. So I don't know, David, if you want to talk about the aid station and what you did while we were sleeping and all that.
Yeah, so the first one, it was like a warm-up, just trying to get used to what different things they wanted. Andrea took care of Mark, and I took care of Aaron, so I figured out a lot of Aaron's likes and dislikes, how much liquid IV for each bottle, and those delicatessen that are available while running. But the first one was pretty funny because they fell asleep. Okay, well, the night before, Andrew and I went to a Asian restaurant, and they served us way too much food. So when we were leaving, we thought, well, do we take this? Do we not? Honestly, we would like to eat something else, but let's just take it just in case.
I think it was an hour and a half away, so we did leave. I mean, we were at the aid station probably at 11, and it didn't get there till 11:30. So we had left like super early that day, and we were kind of just like, well, as a snack. And I wasn't sure. I didn't know that they were going to sleep either.
Yeah, we thought, oh, they're not going to sleep. They're going to wait. And thankfully, we had food with us because they decided to sleep for an hour and a half, and then we were about an hour and a half from any kind of food. So it was a good thing we brought food, and they slept for an hour and a half. We filled up their bags, and Aaron was very nice, but he said, let's try to minimize car movement from here on out, please. Normal people would have just said, you idiots, why are you guys moving all the time? But Aaron was very nice the way he said it. We knew what he meant. And so the next time around, we did it a lot better. At least so I think.
Well,
we didn't hear the same comment twice.
The sport of ultra running is unfortunately a very, very self-centered sport. It's all about you, and the crew has to be all about you. And when you come into an aid station, time is so critical. You look at the difference that stoppage time makes in your finish time, and it can be very significant. For example, in this race, we had 20 hours and 20 minutes of stoppage time. And every minute, every hour you spend stopped at an aid station is just 1 hour and 1 minute further from your finish. And obviously, we only slept 90 minutes per night for those 5 nights on average. So every minute of sleep is really, really important. And that's why I bring earplugs when we go to sleep. And many people actually bring noise-canceling headphones so that when they do lay down, which is obviously a huge waste of time in terms of the racing perspective, you want to get the most use out of that time that you can. And if you're laying there with your eyes open, listening to people talking and dogs barking and other noise at the aid station, you're just wasting your time rather than actually getting sleep and making recovery. Yep.
So the first aid station was memorable because we figured out what worked, what didn't, and I think from then on out it was a little smoother.
Something kept changing every time.
Well,
And so we basically split up the race into 3 sections, 75-mile sections, and we were going to 4 sections of 75 miles. And so the first one we made it. We got there and met David and Andrea, took a nap, kind of really hard reset, really hard reset, which is super nice. And then it's like, okay, we got to go out
Change
and
shoes there.
yeah, change shoes. That's another big deal. Change shoes. And then we were like, all right, we got to head out for another big old leg. But this leg, we were going to pick up David, who was going to run with us for a section of the race. He's going to do it. He was going to do it 2 different times in the race, and he ended up doing it 2 different times in the race. The first time he did it for a shorter amount of time. How much was it?
23 miles.
23 miles of a section. And
uphill.
And it was also through the night, the second night, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was our next kind of big target for the race was let's just get to mile 105, I think, where we will meet up with David and he'll join us and he can talk and keep the pace going and try to keep us awake through the second night. And so we took off, felt really kind of fresh. You leave the aid station, especially after sleeping, really kind of like sluggish, and your feet hurt, your legs feel sore, you just woke up, you ate something, and you're just kind of like, feeling a little bit, just stiff or whatever. And so it takes you 10, 15 minutes of shuffling along to kind of wake yourself back up and get back into ultra mode. And so we headed out and eventually got to mile 105, which is where David picked up for us. It was dark at that point. I'm trying to remember when
It said it was 11 p.m.
Okay, it was 11 p.m. by the time we got to that aid station. We did not sleep because it wasn't, we had kind of scheduled it.
Like maybe a 45-minute nap. Actually.
Yep. We decided because it was the second night and Aaron and I were both struggling at this point to like keep our eyes open, and Aaron was already, half falling asleep sometimes, and I was too. We decided to, before starting running with David, that we would just sit in the car and take like a 30-minute power nap to kind of reset our brain. So we did that, and that was very helpful. It just kind of cleans your eyes and makes them feel significantly less like heavy. So we did that and then started running with David, and David will remember this better than I will because it was his first exposure to the Arizona Monster 300. So I'll let him kind of talk about his his big section he ran.
It's a puny little section.
Yeah.
Little thing.
Thankfully, I had considered doing 2 sections, the 23 miles plus another 30 mile. And then I thought, well, I literally have a 60-mile section I have to run towards the end. I better not overdo it here in the beginning. And I'm very glad I did because these guys are running 300 miles, and it was still hard to keep up with them. They're really, really good. They were very well trained. But it was really cool. You could see a lot of stars. It was very beautiful. I think one of the pictures, it doesn't capture it very well. Mark thought it was a bunch of headlamps in the landscape, but it was actually black sky with stars, and you can sort of see the Milky Way. I was shocked just that there was like nothing. It was cactus after cactus. There was a little bit of variety, and there were actually some that were really cool. They were nice and purple, and ones that looked like a lot of fingers. Actually, I thought it would make a good Christmas tree, a Christmas tree cactus. But it was very, very interesting, the landscape in the plain, and then we made it up. We made it into the mountains and started really going uphill towards Mount Lemon, which really slowed down our run into more of a hike.
It was 8,000?
Yeah, we made it all the way up to 8,000 feet of altitude. I think it was a 6,000, 7,000 foot climb over 23 miles at least.
Yeah, I mean, you guys went really, really, really low.
Yeah, from Tiger Mine, that's the aid station David started at, to Oracle was 9 miles, and Oracle sat at the base of Mount Lemon. And that whole night we had been hearing reports of the temperatures at Mount Lemon and at Oracle leading up to that point. And Oracle was supposed to be in the 30s, and Lemon was supposed to be in the 20s. And it was chilly when we got up there. But from Oracle to the top of Mount Lemon was another 14 miles with 5,600 feet of gain. And that put us at just over 8,000 feet. and that took us just a touch over 6 hours to do that single leg, that climb.
It took forever.
We saw snow in the process.
Yep.
In fact, Andrea and I were driving.
Yeah, we'd seen it
and
the day before.
we had seen snow. We were like, "Is that actually snow?" And the night before, they had gotten about an inch of snow. And we decided we better not tell the guys anything, or it might get a little bit demoralizing. And we actually saw that snow. So we made it all the way to the top of Mount Lemon.
Some of the hills on that were so unbelievably steep.
Mm-hmm.
Like it felt like that hill at Arranoites, the last hill of Arranoites, but honestly steeper. Several sections were steeper and forever. Incredibly long hills, and just kept climbing. And then you'd hit like a false summit, and then it would keep going up, and then you'd hit another false summit, and it'd keep going. And it just felt like it would never end. And it was probably, to me, one of the most frustrating legs of the entire race, because it just like, when are we getting to the top of this mountain? And it was our pace. I don't know what our pace was, but our pace was incredibly slow for that section. So it was very, 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 very tiring section. So it was very nice that David was there to help us on definitely the most difficult section of the whole race, from a fitness and technical standpoint and all that. So we finally got to the top of Mount Lemon, which was our next station where Andrea was going to meet us. And there was a parking lot there. Andrea was there, and it was awesome. We didn't sleep or anything. It was kind of, what time was it? It was in the day.
About 10 a.m.
9:52.
Oh, it was in the morning. So it was 9 in the morning. You know, we have a long day ahead of us, but we sat in the car. You ate whatever food there was there. Andrea had prepped everything for us.
Pancakes.
Yeah, there were some pancakes and all that.
I literally took every pancake in that aid station.
Yeah.
I felt like people kept judging me, because I had 2 runners that I was getting food for every single time. Well, and David the pacer. Well, I don't know if you ate any of them.
I thought I ate something.
Maybe
not.
But I would be like, yeah, I need pancakes, and they would give me some. I was like, well, I need more. Like, I have 2 runners, and then I would come back again. They said they want more. I'm like, okay, we'll make it. And they were like, I was constantly asking for more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
But yeah, they rested some.
They're very good.
And then they headed out, and I headed back down. We had another long 1.5-hour drive back to our hotel. Everyone sleep deprived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I also had to wake up. They were estimated to get there earlier, but of course their pace did slow down. So I had also left 3 hours before they ever got there.
So this was like mile mark 128 or so, and our next kind of target, goal, objective thing, the next big thing on the agenda was get to mile 158. Yep, which was a big moment, like literally obviously halfway through the race. And then also we got to meet up with Andrea and David again, and it was the start of a totally different type of running, which was running through Tucson on a literal bike trail. So it was super nice. Halfway through the race, you get to switch out your shoes for like road running shoes, which have more padding and are more comfortable and just feel different. So it gives your feet a total different feel and a different, everything. And Andrea.
Let's do a part 2 in case someone needs to pause.
Okay. And Andrea too. Here's part 2. So this is the next aid station where we took a sleep. We slept for another 1.5 hours. And this was the section that Andrea was going to do her leg of the race with us. And it was super perfect because it was it was 18 miles. So it was not a short leg, but it was actually quite a long leg. But it was very, very flat.
That started at what time?
Yeah.
That started at midnight? Yeah.
Yeah.
This is night
And it took us how long?
Night 3. Another, 4, I think it said.
Yeah, 4:15.
4:15.
Yeah.
Right, so if you're following along at home, that aid station is Catalina, mile 158, just at the north end of Tucson. And like Mark said, this was something we were looking forward to because we had about 55 miles of pavement before we were back on the trails full time again, which meant we could swap out trail shoes for road shoes, which are much lighter and a lot more efficient, and also just a little bit more comfortable since they don't have quite the same amount of stiffness in them. So we swapped those out at Catalina. We slept there at Catalina.
In-N-Out Burger.
We had In-N-Out Burger because that was nearby. That was pretty neat. And we had about 2.5 hours of stoppage time at that aid station. Like Andrea said, we left at 11:53 p.m. So we were happy to get this next leg out of the way at night because the days were so hot, and this was going to be very low, very exposed, and on asphalt. So we ran to Rillito, which was a little over 18 miles, took us just a tad over 4 hours, made a great time, saw very few other runners out there. Picked up one guy, yep.
Who had the old map instead of the updated map.
That's
so
true.
He was very happy to find us.
That's for sure. Yep, saw a lot of homeless people. And we arrived at Rillito around 4 a.m. And that was mile 176. And we stayed there for about an hour, and I believe we slept at Rillito for 30 minutes. So at this point, we have had
A little more.
4 hours and 15 minutes of sleep in 3 nights. And that was mile 176. So we left Rillito at 5 a.m. So it's still nice and cool. And this was the very long paved section. And so we were hoping to make as best time as we could, but we knew it was going to get hot. So Rillito to Valencia was a 21-mile leg, so the second longest leg in the race. It didn't have much gain or loss because, again, it was mostly on pavement, but it took us 6 hours and 40 minutes, and we finished the leg around noon. It got very hot, and I would say, maybe Mark will disagree, but probably the hottest we felt in the entire race. If you look on the map, there's a section right before Valencia where the trail gets poker straight for like 5 miles. And what that is the trail goes right by a military base, and there's no shade out there. It was really exposed, very hot and dry, and we basically just walked and baked our way through that entire leg there. It was really uncomfortable. But toward the end of it, we came out to a road and we're trying to find a place to get some water. And we saw a church in the opposite direction of where we were supposed to go. And we went back and forth. Should we go over to that church? We decided not to. So we kept going. And sure enough, just a couple hundred yards from the aid station, there was a gas station. And we made a beeline for that gas station, went in there and got the biggest slushie we could find and sat on their greasy tile floor and drank those slushies. And I think that pretty much turned the race around for us. So once we were at Valencia, we were just shy of 200 miles. We got there around noon. We sat there for 45 minutes, and this is where we ran into a handful of gentlemen that we would actually pretty much share the rest of the race with. Ben, Jeff, and Chad. And the 4 of us, or 5 of us, would go back and forth for basically the next 100 miles. Which was neat. They were good guys. Really enjoyed getting to know them. So we sat there for 45 minutes, filled up on everything we could, and we knew the next leg was 15 miles, 1,100 feet, not horrible on paper, but it ended up being another very miserable leg. We started it at 12:39 p.m., finished it at 4:34 p.m., so just the hottest part of the day. And it involved a long climb up a highway. That was really busy, cars flying by, totally exposed, very hot. It was a very uncomfortable leg of the race, but that ended at Pistol Hill. So right toward the end of that leg, we hopped on the Arizona Trail. You'll see that on the map for just 2 miles or so. We hit Pistol Hill, and that was an R&R station, which meant they didn't put a lot into it. It wasn't a whole lot of food or anything. So we only sat there for 37 minutes before we took off at around 5 p.m. and just made a beeline for Gabe Zimmerman. We kept saying, we'll get to see Andrea, we'll get to see David, pick them up again, and that's where David would start pacing us again.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that morning when they started at Relito, David and I checked out of our hotel, drove an hour and a half down closer to the finish line to get another hotel there so that we would be closer to them at the last 2 accessible aid stations. And once you leave Tucson, there's nothing out there because we wanted to get them like some donut holes or something like that to celebrate their 200 plus mile mark at 222, and there was
That's
nothing.
222 miles.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
2 p.m.
Oh, right. 222, yes, miles. But yeah, we were unsuccessful, so we met them empty-handed at night.
Yeah. And so the Gabe Zimmerman aid station was another kind of pivotal moment in a way because it was like,
Well,
okay.
the ankle was really
Yeah.
bad at that
Oh,
moment.
yeah. So for my
His
ankle.
ankle.
My left, it's not my
Well,
ankle.
the
It's like,
cankle.
it's my, it's the tendon on the front of the foot that if you have your foot planted on the floor and you try to lift your toes up, like you try to lift the toes of your foot up, there's a tendon on the front of your leg, I don't know what it's called, but that tightens up. That tendon felt like it had snapped in half and was no longer functioning. It didn't, but it felt like it. Because I couldn't lift my toe. I cannot, and I still can't right now. I'm trying. I can't lift my toes hardly. Like I can barely lift them, but it's very, very painful. And so it doesn't hurt when I was climbing hills. So if I was going uphill, it didn't hurt because my foot, because of how you go uphill, you rest on the front of your foot and you let your heel kind of hang. Well, but it killed. It was excruciating when you're trying to go down a hill because that's when your foot's extended more, and that tendon was absolutely killing me. So when I got to this aid station, Gabe Zimmerman, which is where David was going to jump back into pacing us, I was really worried. I at no point in the race was I super worried about not being able to finish. Thankfully, I didn't have too much of that except at this aid station because when it had just gotten exacerbated over the course of the last like probably 30 miles to the point where I was like really kind of worried. I'm like, dude, this is actually really bad. My ankle is getting worse. It's getting swollen. I looked down and my gaiters, which are like the things we would wear over our shoes to keep dirt and dust and stuff out of your shoes, they were completely tight around my ankle because it was so swollen. It'd gotten super red, and you touched it with your hand and it was burning hot, for like almost like if it had a fever or an infection or something. So anyway, when I got to this aid station and saw Andrea and David, the first thing I did was like, I need to talk to a medic and like go see if there's someone here that can look at this for me. And so talked to this really nice lady from the UK. She was there just helping volunteer for one of the runners. And she had a funny accent. But anyway, she was really, really nice. And so I propped there's a picture of it in the album, but I propped my leg on her lap and just kind of explained to her what was going on and all this. And she was very helpful. And she basically, the long story short of it was that she's like, listen, it's messed up at this point. You know, it's not going to get any better. You can finish the race. It's just going to hurt a lot.
And she said, like, do be on the lookout. If you have, if you get nauseous, black out, or have a fever, call someone. And that's like, you might have an infection. That's it.
I forgot to tell you, she actually pulled me aside and really gave me a serious talk. She said, you cannot kid around with this. If he does anything, starts feeling like, any of those kind of behaviors that Andrew just described, you need to call someone prompt and do not encourage him to keep going.
So it was a little bit, I was actually, I almost had not a panic moment, but I had a really close, like, oh shoot. Because even like after she's like talking to me about this, I then go to like, okay, well, thank you for the advice. I'm going to go to the car. And it was another sleep section where Aaron and I were going to take an hour and a half long nap, or 2 hour nap, I think. So I get up out of the chair and because at that point I'd been sitting for 15 minutes, everything starts to get tight again. And I literally, no exaggeration, could not walk. I could not put any weight on my foot at all. And Andrea ended up coming over, and I like rested my arm around her shoulder and just hopped to the car. And unbelievably painful.
I would offer to carry you.
And,
I
yeah.
knew I would hurt my back.
So what I decided to do was like, hey, okay, well, let me go sleep this thing off.
You got it too. Yeah.
After,
Yeah,
So
sleeping.
the doctor lady said, okay, go sleep whatever you got to sleep. And when you're done, before you head out, I'll wrap your foot up in like athletic tape. And she's like, it's not going to help, but it'll at least stabilize your ankle a little bit and hopefully, hopefully keep it from getting worse. And then it's just going to mean you going out, walking for 10 minutes, slowly working your blood back into the ankle, slowly trying to get the soreness to move away. And then, it's just a mind over matter thing where you're just going to have to decide, I don't care, I'm going to keep going, because you have 80 miles left, and that's not a short distance to go on a bum leg, especially after having done 225 or whatever. So went to bed with Aaron. We went back to the car and slept.
And I think that was the night that Aaron kept talking in his sleep.
Yeah.
Kept waking up.
Aaron was.
We'll just say that.
Aaron was having. It was. I'm used to it because I've been with Aaron for a lot of these races and things like that. And he talks in his sleep a ton during these ultras where he's
his
just
mind
blabbering.
Wasn't stopping. He was like, Andrea, what do I have to do next?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, just keep sleeping. He's like, so we turn right. Okay.
And then he'll start talking about like
Python
and coding, and then he'll be like, but he'll just say random things, but I can't, and just it doesn't. Anyways, I don't even care. I was so tired.
I answered to the first three, and then I figured.
Yeah.
It was fine.
And so the second my head hits the pillow, I'm out, and I kind of come in and out, like I'll hear Aaron's conversations or whatever, but I'm not really focused on it, and I'm just in and I'm asleep. But before you know it, the alarm goes off, and it's been 2 hours. So it's crazy how tired we are. But yeah, I got up.
It took you guys about like maybe 45 seconds every time after the first night to like start snoring.
Yeah, we were very, very, very tired. And I slept the whole time with my feet elevated above me to try to get swelling down and out of my ankle. And I don't know if it helped. It might have helped a little bit, but
I mean, after like pounding on your ankle so long.
All right. I did ask Andrea to wake me up 30 minutes before the final time to get up to go out, and I took some medication some hydrocodone to see if that would help with the pain and help me at least get going. And it didn't really, honestly, I didn't even feel a difference. So that was a little frustrating, but
it has been expired since 2018.
Yeah.
But,
So anyway, I woke up and shuffled, literally hobbled, whatever, over to the medical tent, and she wrapped my ankle up. And I was like, all right, well, I just gonna go out and give it my best shot and keep walking. And even if it means literally walking the rest of the race, I'll walk the rest of the race. And we went out on, what time was it?
12:19.
Very late again.
So midnight. It was midnight. And
so that was actually our longest stoppage time of any aid station, 3.5 hours.
And then this next.
Is this night 4 at this point?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Well, this was the 7th to the 8th. So 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8. That was the 4th night.
Yeah. 4th night, 230 or 220 something miles in, and we had 80 miles to go.
And David started.
And David was with us, and it was at night.
That was a 2-hour sleep.
Yeah, our longest.
Yep. By this point, we had slept 6 hours and 15 minutes, and that was the 4th night.
You guys still have it.
And yeah, we left at 12:19 a.m. with David on the next leg, which was only 10 miles, 10 and a half miles. So
Yeah.
a very short leg, relatively speaking. As a matter of fact, we finished it in 3.5 hours. So one of the fastest legs of the whole race in terms of time. And that looks like we arrived at Santa Rita at just before 4 a.m. So that was a fairly flat section of the race, but after this, we got into the mountains a little bit more, leading up to Oak Tree. And Santa Rita to Oak Tree was almost 18 miles, 3,700 feet of gain, so a fairly hefty leg. We arrived there at just before 11 a.m., took us 6.5 hours. And Oak Tree did not have crew access. No crew
No,
there.
I wasn't able to go back and see you guys till 288.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, David was out there
I saw
for.
the 8th station, but I couldn't get to
Yeah,
it.
so I paced with Mark and Aaron for about 65 miles.
Yeah,
all the way to the last aid station. So the only portion I didn't run there was the final 16 miles to the finish line. And we basically were out there for over 24 hours. I think it was something like
It was a
30
very
hours.
long time.
I think it took us 30 hours to do those 65 miles. That's just the big picture. Aaron's going through the details. I don't want to skip that.
I didn't see you guys again until like
Yeah,
almost 3 a.m.
and at the end of his leg, it ended with a 21.5 mile jaunt. So that's actually the second longest. I know I said that before. That other one was the third. So this is the second longest leg of the race. Nearly 4,000 feet of gain and 5,000 feet of loss. Very, very tough leg, especially because we started it at 7:19 p.m. We finished it at 2:48 a.m. So dark the whole time. It honestly didn't get all that cool. Spent a lot of time in very, very warm air up there in the mountains, which was a little strange for us. It didn't get cold until a few hundred yards before the aid station, when the temperature plummeted from what felt like 70 to what was in the 30s at Casablanca. It was very, very strange and very, very frustrating as well, given that the time we're actually moving and you want to be cool, it was hot, and the time you stop and you want to be warm, it was cold. So can't get it both ways, I guess.
And we were in that aid station just jackknifing, like shivering uncontrollably.
Yeah.
And like I couldn't, when you can hardly talk because your jaw's shivering so hard. And so anyway, Aaron, you can tell. But
yeah, so Casablanca, last crew accessible aid, also last aid period. We didn't plan to stop there for long. You get to the last aid station, you either blow through it or just grab a quick bite and run. Like at Bigfoot, we stopped for less than 60 seconds in our last aid, and we just took off. This one, we actually stayed there for 90 minutes, which I would have never predicted. But shortly before that, we got to that aid, I started struggling with sleep really, really badly. And Mark was getting real sleepy as well.
And you had a blister that they had to patch up. Mm-hmm. That's the other one.
Yeah, and that took some time. So it's unfortunate, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't make too big of a difference. So we left there at 4:20 a.m., which was really a shame because that meant we would have a little bit more time in the heat, which we were trying to avoid. We were racing to get this race done before it got hot, which is roughly once the sun comes up. So
which is at like 6 a.m.
Yes.
too.
So we left there 4:20 a.m. and we had a 16-mile leg. It took us just a tad over 5 hours, and we finished at about 9:30 in the morning.
yeah.
Very, very hot, very dusty, but we were happy to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we got to the finish line, and Andrea obviously took the video, so you saw that. And it was awesome. It's a feeling of finishing something that big and monumental. And for me, something I'd been exclusively basically training for a year. Aaron has had many other races, since signing up for this that he's been training for. But for me, it was like a year ago, I decided I wanted to do this thing, and it's been pretty much my singular focus for training for an entire year. And it's like the last like 60 seconds of the run when you hear the cowbells going, everyone's cheering, and I'm like mentally thinking, wow, it's over. Like, this is it. It's done. Like, I can't really believe that it's done. It's a really weird moment. That's kind of hard to put into words. But crossed the finish line, and there's obviously people there cheering, and it's so fun. I enjoy the finish line so much because there are other runners there that finished, 30 minutes before you or an hour before you or whatever, and they're all sitting around eating or chilling or whatever, and you're just talking about the race and the run and getting to know other people and what they struggled with. And I'd be like, yeah, my ankle's been bothering me for 100 miles, and the guy next to me is like, dude, I had that exact, and he showed me his ankle, and his ankle was the same thing. And he's like, mine started hurting at this point, and I had to do this, and I considered dropping at this point in the race. And it's just because all of us have been through the same thing. And it's like very few people on planet Earth will ever experience something like this. And you're in a tent with 10 other people of those guys or girls that just went through it with you, and you're all in the same boat, and it's just really, really cool. And obviously you're finally sitting down and not having to get out of the chair to keep running. So yeah, it was a very, very fun. I'm not like an emotional guy, so I don't like cry or anything, but it was like emotional in the fact that it's like, I can't believe it's over, and got some pictures. They gave us some really cool like finishing stuff. This company, Destination Trails, that does this one in Bigfoot and the other ones, they always have these belt buckles at the end, so you get to pick out which one you like the best. So we got to go over to the table and pick out what buckle you liked. And a mug and a finishing print, and you get your picture, same mug shot that you got at the beginning, you get it at the end, so you can compare the two of how you look.
Yours is gonna look with the big lips and all that.
Yeah, mine's gonna probably be kind of funny
Mark sunburned his lip, his lower lip. So it's
lower lip looks horrible right now, but
has leprosy.
Yeah. So overall, I was very happy with the race. The only thing I think that didn't go according to plan really was probably my ankle, and if it hadn't happened, I think we probably could have finished it, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 hours sooner, which would have been nice, but I am not going to complain given the fact that so many worse things could have happened, and so many things out of our control can happen at any given time and cause a DNF, a drop from the race. There are plenty of people out there that are probably better runners than I am that DNF'd for reasons that they couldn't control, So I'm just very thankful that God let me finish it, and I think Aaron probably would say the same thing. But
yeah, it was a long time coming. Took a long time to work up to that kind of distance for sure, and the race itself was not without its problems, but we thoroughly enjoyed it. Like Mark said, we didn't have any serious issues. Vomiting happens, injuries happen. We met some neat people along the way, got to see a part of the country neither of us had seen before, and probably never need to see again. But we can cross a 300 off the chart now.
Yep. And thank you guys for following along and sending prayers and videos and pictures and everything. That was very, very kind of you. And hopefully this isn't, I know you aren't going to complain that it's too long, but hopefully you have, hopefully you guys enjoy the audios, and we did it in 2 parts so that you can kind of split it up if you want to. But yeah, thank you for listening, and enjoy the pictures and the videos.